Yo guys, what is up? Max on a Borderlands 4 video, and today we're going over RAFAGEDDON. Now, you might be asking, why is it called RAFAGEDDON? This is a Grenade Rafa build that does some crazy things. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We're going to be going over everything you need to know. Let's do this.
Over, you just can't breathe.
Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake?
Oh, I hear a bomber. Okay, I have overshield and I'm full shield with 126k. What? Okay, here's another. We did it! Another! Another! I'm immortal! All right, so let's do an overview of the build, and then we'll get into the skill tree and the specifics and everything else that you need to know. So at its core, this is a grenade build. This build works with any grenade. However, fire grenades in particular are going to be very synergistic for us. The main grenade that I am using on this build is the waterfall grenade. This is a very, very cool grenade. I just hopped on my Vex real quick to show you because I had a bunch of waterfalls on her. But the waterfall can roll in a bunch of different elements. I believe it's all different elements. And it can also roll basically all of the different modifiers for your different grenades. Not all of these modifiers are created equal. I'd recommend if you find any to pick them up and give them a try because there's a ton of fun options. But there is two particular modifiers that we are going to be focusing on and trying to use for this build. If you don't get them, that's fine. But there are some like god roll waterfalls, in my opinion. So the modifier that you're going to be looking for is anything that leaves like lasting things while it's active. So for example, this is lingering payload for incendiary damage, spawning rotating beams. It's also got a fracture augment, so it spawns out these elemental pillars. This other one that's really cool has lingering payload on it as well, with a pulsing augment that radiates these elemental pulses. If we put on the like pulsing augment, I'll show you what this one looks like real quick. So you'll notice that once we throw it, things just start to happen. And the reason we can get this to happen, well, at least as far as I understand it, because it gets a little wacky, is because of booming business. Now, this reads that whenever Rafa critically hits an enemy, he gains a chance to spawn a free grenade. If Rafa has a grenade equipped, spawn a grenade based off of that. So, as long as we have crit chance on our grenades can spawn more grenades, and then those grenades can spawn more grenades, and those grenades can spawn more grenades. And this seems to have a cooldown on if you're shooting your gun. Note that this breaks past 5 out of 5 points. So if you go to like 6 out of 5, this just stops working. So you don't want a class mod giving you any additional points into this. But it does seem like, at least from what I could tell, grenades themselves proccing this don't seem to have a cooldown, which is why we can get these like infinite procs. And so you want a grenade that deals damage in a big radius and also leaves lingering effects to hit as many enemies as possible. We're also going to be speccing into splash radius so that we get more radius on this. to make the damage hit in a wider area. And then technically, these can just keep proccing themselves and proccing themselves and proccing themselves. Now, note, it doesn't quite look like this when you're attacking enemies out in the wild, because enemies don't have infinite HP. Anything in here would be incinerated very, very quickly, because we're also doing a ton of damage. So most of the time, the grenades will do their cool effects, and they'll die out, and you'll need to throw another one. But technically, we could just have this looping back and forth on top of itself with our grenades, which is really cool. That's why you saw me throw like basically one grenade, and it's just going. The other piece of the build is the Grenazerker class mod that reads that whenever we throw a grenade, we get to throw an additional one. There's a lot of cool class mods that you could use with this build. Grenazerker is great because it allows us to basically double our damage. We're popping double grenades whenever we're clicking our grenade button, which is super, super helpful for bossing and mobbing. All right, now let's go over all of our skill points. So we're starting out with Expedite. This gives us more movement speed while we're in overdrive. Just nice to have. Not a ton of great points for us here. Then we go to El Corazon. This is giving us a portion of our max health reduced, but giving us a massive increase to our maximum shield capacity. And I was originally using this with like a Watts for dinner or an onion. There's a bunch of cool shields that you can do with this. However, 70% max shield capacity is crazy. And I figured because our grenade's not doing damage to us, we actually have a chance to be really survivable on this build. And so we are using a Tortoise Regulus. This is I think it's a double turtle rolled purple shield that can have up to 65,000 capacity, which is just crazy. And because we're using waterfall grenades and like not damaging ourselves with these grenades, the only damage that's incoming to us is going to be enemy damage. And so with a shield that has 126,000 capacity, we have a ton of survivability on the build, which is actually really, really cool. So technically, the Watts for dinner would probably be the best bossing shield, so you can get that bonus shock damage. However, for most of the time, we're good on damage. I just use that because it makes us really, really hard to kill. We can tank suicide rippers, which is awesome. And then we're putting points into To the Last to get extra gun damage and skill damage when our health gets low. Note that this is not great points. Our health is hardly ever low enough for this to really give us meaningful stuff. But there's not really anything else that's great. We don't want In the Zone. In the Zone's a little bit tricky. Currently, there's a bug with Hemolitions. It seems that like you don't want to be in overdrive for too long, and so we're not speccing into this. If you want to give it a go, you can. But that's how we're speccing our main points. Not a lot of great things up in this top part of the tree. We're mainly just trying to get down to this middle branch. Once we get to this middle branch, we can get to Artilleria. This gives us 30% ordnance cooldown rate, non-conditional, so it works for bossing. I was originally going to spec all the way down to Ariba to get killing ordnance cooldown. This is a ton of ordnance cooldown, but we have to basically spend 5 wasted points to get to it, and this doesn't work for bosses, so like it, not as interesting. So I put points into Artilleria. It gives us extra ordnance cooldown rate. Then we go to Collaborative Ignition. This is going to give us bonus damage based off of our element of our gun while overdrive is active. Ton of extra damage for us. Then we got Synergia. Whenever Rafa deals ordnance damage, he also deals increased gun and melee damage. We've got a Specialization that is going to convert a portion of our gun damage into ordnance damage. So this getting like 120% gun damage is just another 60% ordnance damage for us, which is awesome. Booming Business at 5 out of 5. This is going to allow us to get those looping grenades. And also, if a grenade is not looping, you can just shoot your gun at someone's head, and this will give you a free grenade. Yeah, so like if you're having to wait for your grenade to be on cooldown, you can't throw one, just shoot an enemy in the head. We've got some tricks to make that a little bit easier, but this will just proc extra grenades. Then we've got El Diablito. This reads that a portion of our incendiary damage that we deal also deals bonus incendiary damage. This is the reason why we want to be using fire grenades on the build, because anything that's dealing fire damage is going to deal 50% bonus fire damage, which is crazy. And then we get Hemolitions. Now, this is the most important skill for the entire build. However, it's also the most bugged. And when I say bugged, not talking in a fun or like enjoyable way, this seems to not work quite properly. I still need to do more testing on it, but from what I can tell, this reads that while overdrive is active, Rafa may use grenades during ordnance cooldown at the cost of health. Every time a grenade is used this way, it costs more health until Rafa's grenade fully cools down. Now, that last part seems to not properly be working. Every time Rafa's grenade is used this way, it costs more health until Rafa's grenade fully cools down. So in theory, you could throw a bunch of grenades and it would keep costing more and more, increasing increments of health until your grenade cools down, and then it would reset, and then you could constantly throw more grenades until it builds up, wait for your grenade to cool down, and this would allow you to stay in overdrive and constantly throw grenades. And so I originally spec'd this build into Instinto with Huerga so that we could stay in overdrive with the Peacebreaker cannons and just get infinite grenade throws. However, it seems like this doesn't reset when your grenade cools down. It resets when overdrive ends, meaning that eventually, if you're throwing grenades pretty quickly, all of a sudden your grenades will dealing 100% of your health. I was going from 100% health to dead in a single grenade throw, and I'm not doing self-damage with my grenades. It does seem like it resets if you go down. So if you go into fight for your life, you can get that back, and then you can start throwing again. However, like, we don't want to keep our overdrive active all the time on this setup, at least from what I can tell. So we're going to be using Apophis Lance so that we can shoot it, get our overdrive, and then overdrive lasts for 12 seconds. We get 12 seconds of infinite grenades, which is plenty. Our Apophis Lance is on like a 10-second cooldown on our current setup. So then we just get Apophis Lance back. Then we get 12 seconds of infinite grenades. So at least we're getting it to reset, so we're not constantly killing ourselves. And then for the rest of the points, we went to El Paraguay's. This is going to give us increased splash damage, which is awesome. But the big thing is the 10% splash crit chance. With our specializations, this is 15% crit chance for our grenades. So with all the damage they're doing, they can then reproc Booming Business. And then all of our grenades dealing splash damage also deal bonus shock damage. So we've got bonus shock damage, and we've got bonus elemental damage of our gun, which means that we can, like, if we're going against a armored enemy, we can use like a corrosive gun, for example, and not have to have massive damage penalties dealing with like armor bars, for example. Now let's talk gear. Now there's a few like cool tricks that you can use with your weapons depending on how you want to play the build. So the first crazy thing that you can do is if any of you are familiar with AFK Rafa, it was a build that basically used the Mixologist, which reads that guns with Mal 1 licensed parts deal 10% bonus damage from the inactive mode's element, pairing that with a beam tosser, which would then infuse the damage of your beam tosser into your Peacebreaker cannons. However, this tech works for Ordnance grenades as well. So technically, you can hold a beam tosser with Mixologist and then throw a waterfall and get beam tosser damage basically added into your grenade. So that freaking shreds things. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's absolutely not needed for this setup. We've messed around with like using that and not using that. You can also use, I was really enjoying using Jacob's weapons with Piercer. Guns with Jacob's licensed parts have a 20% chance to grant a critical hit. You pair that with like a Katagawa's with a Jacob's part that shoots, and now your Katagawa's, you're shooting all these things. Those can proc crits for free grenades. You could use something like a Buri with the crits. You could technically use a COV like duct tape mod, but just using a Buri that fires fast and aiming at enemies, you'll also be proccing tons of free grenades. The reason we want to be proccing free grenades, we never want to have it to be waiting for our grenade to be done cooling down. So like the cooldown of our grenades plus popping headshots with our guns allows us to get pretty good uptime. But for technically bossing, using like a Mixologist with a beam tosser will give you absolutely ridiculous damage. Now, for our Repkit, we're going to be using mostly a kill spring. We have a huge shield, and we really don't have any way of making it come back quickly. We've got no like shield regen perks. So a kill spring is going to give all of their excess damage, which we're doing a lot of, right back into our shields. So that's the number one way we're going to be getting shield back. Then I rolled mine with Accelerator so that we could pop this and get like 10 seconds plus off of our Apophis Lance, which is really, really nice. Then for our class mod, we've got the Grenazerker. I think the God Roll Grenazerker, to be honest, would be, for quality of life, honestly, a 5 out of 5 into Ariba for a bunch of extra cooldown for your Ordnance whenever you kill an enemy. For damage, you definitely want 5 out of 5 into Confetti. I have neither of that. I've got some into Synergia for some extra gun damage, but this is just kind of like additive soup, so not super ideal. But yeah, if you're farming for a perfect one, I would go for Ariba, and honestly, Abajo is pretty good too. Get some extra action skill cooldown for more spam. Remember, anytime that we get a Pappas Lance back, we get that free like spam instantly. So yeah, honestly, my god roll would probably be as many points into Ariba and Abajo as possible. We are doing plenty of damage. For our ordnance, we're using the waterfall grenade. The waterfall grenade can spawn with a bunch of cool things. It does a ton of damage and will kill basically all of the bosses for us. However, the highest damage grenade in the game is the fire pot grenade. We're using this to nuke bosses. The reason this grenade does so much damage is because its Torg stickies deal gun damage, so it benefits from both ordnance damage and gun damage. I believe it was CZ47 who discovered that. I know Chadley99 made a video about this with Grenade Rafa, so I'll have a link and credit to him for that down below. I haven't seen his guide on this. I'm imagining he's using something pretty similar, but yeah, the fire pot just deletes bosses. It is ridiculously strong. The fact that it basically gets double scaling, kind of like how the bod gets like 5x scaling, the atomic fire pot gets multiple scaling. Mine's got nuke on it, so we get extra damage. You could get like additional fire pots as well, would also be really good. But yeah, fire pot for bossing. Basically, the trick with this thing is you need to like swap your weapon or like change your firing mode so that all of these stickies proc. Otherwise, they just kind of sit around for a little while. For our shield, using the Regulus, you could technically swap to like Watts for Dinner for bossing to get a little bit of extra damage. I don't think it's totally needed, mainly just rocking the Regulus. And then for your enhancement, you would technically want like gun damage on this, especially all of like gun damage rolls. If you're going to be using the fire pot, like gun damage, gun splash would be really, really good. Mixologist is nice if you're going to rock the beam tosser. Otherwise, you could go for like just like a Jacob's roll to get the extra crit chance so that when you're shooting your guns, you have a higher likelihood of proccing grenades. For our firmware, we're going to be rocking 3 out of 3 risky boots. This gives us less damage taken, more movement speed when our health is low, but the real kicker is that when we get to low health, this lifesteal kicks in, and as I've been told by a viewer, this lifesteal is gross, and in testing it seems to work like that. A lot of lifesteal wouldn't allow us to stay alive with Hemolitions because Hemolitions is percentage based of our health, and lifesteal is health over time, so it's really hard to out-heal this, and to a point, you won't be able to out-heal this, but Risky Boots was definitely allowing me to throw more grenades than more grenades than if I was using like a 30% health on a Repkit, which we did also try. This seems to be the way in terms of like lifesteal to go. Really, really nice. Don't really care about the damage, to be honest. You're not going to be low health for long enough for any of that to really matter, but the lifesteal kick-in does seem pretty strong to get us back to full health so that we can throw more grenades. And then I'm rocking Gadget Ahoy 1 for extra ordnance cooldown duration, and then Airstrike 1 for the splash radius. This is just going to give us more bang for our buck. When we throw a grenade, it's going to hit more enemies, especially with like the waterfall. For our specializations, we're rocking the best defense, 30% damage dealt when our shield is full or our health is full, which both are true quite often. Then we're rocking Tripwire for extra ordnance cooldown rate, Full Spectrum Arsenal for extra ordnance damage. This is giving us scaling from our gun. If I hadn't mentioned it, grenades do not get full gun damage scaling. Only gun ordnance like Gatling guns or rocket launchers get 100% of your gun damage increases. So if we don't spec this, we get no benefits from our gun damage. So Full Spectrum Arsenal is kind of needed. And then Fragmentation Payload is going to give us that up to 15% crit chance on our grenades. Plus, when we crit, we deal extra damage. Very nice. If I had more points, if you wanted some more uptime, currently on this character, I'm only like specialization level 57. But getting now with caffeine would also be really nice for some extra action skill uptime. Just don't have enough points. Guys, that is going to do it for the build guide and the video. I hope you enjoyed. Good luck farming. And huge thanks and credit to like a ton of people that helped with this build. CZ for the fire pot. Chadley for being the first, I think, to post about like a grenade Rafa. I got help from Copy on Discord for the Malawan mixologist enhancement. A viewer named Kingchrons gave me this Grenazerker class mod to mess around with, and I had Melancholy from the Discord help me source some grenades to try out. So like huge community collaborative effort to put all of this together. Really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.